recently came across a video of Aretha Franklin when she won the Kennedy Center honor. She brought her pocketbook on stage with her and sat down at the piano. I feel a little bit like Aretha carrying my backpack. Hey, what's good?
Drop the fur.
Say again?
Drop the fur.
I know, drop the fur, because shout out to Aretha, shout out to our ancestors. Let's maybe start there. This is Paulo Freire. Anybody familiar with dude? Okay. It's one of my teachers. The author of a seminal work called Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Talk a little bit about liberatory pedagogy in a minute. Before we get fully there, I'd just like to extend the invitation to us all to just shout out the names of your teachers. Yes. Yeah. Yes. 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 Yeah. I'm finding that as our cities, not just in this country but around the world, kind of disappear. I'm looking for artifacts of what was, and it feels very important to honor the memory of our teachers. The streets are lined and paved with lessons that they've imparted. And as you all are necessary cogs in a particular line, let's hope somebody shouts you out someday. At my American best, I wear my struggles as swagger. I'm genetically encoded with my country's history. Every now and then, I try to imagine my ancestors, and when I close my eyes, what I think I see is probably a blood memory. Racism is so embedded in America that when we protest racism, the average American thinks we're protesting America. Some of our embedded norms are dangerous and unsustainable, including our norms around class, including our tropes about class relative to race and gender. Altering the arc of culture takes heart. In fact, we might want to ask ourselves if our work not only feels exciting, but courageous. Like on a meter between 0 and Harriet Tubman, how courageous. How courageous is my work? How do we move from Black joy, which is itinerant, to Black autonomy, which is political? Can we imagine the artistic curation of community activation? Is it possible to pedagogically choreograph social justice? What do you think I mean by that question? Let's say, as long as we're together, there are no wrong answers. What do you think I mean by this question?
The flow, the steps, the heartbeat.
Flow, steps, heartbeat. Boom. Yes. Can we affect change? Yes.
Our actions are codified in freedom rather than imprisonment.
Yes. Let's hold on to that. Yes.
Choreography implies that somebody's calling the steps.
Yes. Yeah.
Rather, we should teach the children to set the steps.
Yes. Excellent. Anybody else?
What's supposed to be introverted within ourselves, instead of extroverted coming from the outside,
Mm-hmm.
really enforce something on the outside to come in.
Mm-hmm.
Should be at the heart.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. What I tend to believe is that there are systems that are really beautifully designed to incarcerate us. There are systems that are incredibly effective to deport us. So can you design freedom? Like, can you will love into being through the force of your creative life or your creative practice? I don't know. But I'm an artist and my parents immigrated here from Haiti, so I know how to grind. It's like all I know how to do is grind for this freedom. And Frere and Chuck D and Toni Morrison made me literate and open to the idea of liberatory pedagogy, this idea of using your words to get free. So I'm just going to share with you over the course of the next little bit a whole bunch of ways that I'm just trying to answer this question. Okay? All right. Cool. So to begin, shout out. I want to share a little bit of this opera that I wrote.
Love yourself, baby. Oh, gee, say self-love leads to sex love. Oh, gee, say time did not reconcile me to my strength. It made me familiar with them. Say black and hear yet. Say black and hear it now. Say love is the only way sweeter than love. 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 Love is the only way sweeter than love.
Yeah. Thanks. The soloist there, the countertenor, is a man from Houston, Texas. His name is John Holiday. Just want to speak the words that he was singing. Say black and hear yes. Say black and hear enough. Say love is the only word sweeter than black. Love is the only word sweeter than black. So, another one of my teachers is Liz Lerman, who you'll meet tomorrow. She introduced me to this idea that was introduced to her by an indigenous artist and scholar named Brian Brayboy, a definition of aesthetics. Aesthetics are what a people believe to be good, beautiful, and true. Aesthetics are what a people believe to be good, beautiful, and true. So not all my people are black, but I'm making this black-ass opera for all my people. And I guess my question for you is, who are your people? Who are your people? And what do they believe is good? Or beautiful? Or true? So as I'm choreographing social justice, who are my lead movers in the dance? Who are my people and how do I love them? In the beginning was green, which was the first problem. Green like solar panels, rainforests, carbon footprints, green like federal dollars on subsidies to oil companies, green like the BP logo, like shoots in a decimated economy never to bear fruit. In the beginning, the idea was simple and slightly hubristic. If we throw an urban performance festival in an under-resourced park and we infuse that festival with an environmental message, we can create a pathway to green vocabulary, consciousness, and action in Black and brown neighborhoods. Simultaneously, by activating the park with art, we modeled to the presenting field that perhaps the best way to address issues of audience development was to actually develop work in the underused spaces of poor and new majority America. The problem was that we were attempting to impose values and vocabulary of physical ecology in a community that was preoccupied with social ecology and who already was in possession of vocabulary, values that reflected a conservationist ethic born of necessity, sustainable survival practices born out of generations and blood memory. If you look real close, you can see he has 21, maybe 27 and a half hairs on his chin. At first you miss the hair because the first thing you notice is his skin. If it were soil, his is the earth brown you would want to sow in. A Chicago sun, hard times. He does not blink. So think of this brother brown, and now see this mother black. You see how dark the day becomes when you bury the sun, how you set the future back. A mother inters a murdered teen. If you're brown, you can't go green until you hold a respect for Black life. We asked hundreds of leaders in 7 different cities, what sustains life in your community? The answers were sometimes rooted in environmental sustainability, but they often veered towards the colloquial and the absurd, like Frenchie's Chicken Shack sustains life in Houston, like Beyonce does. Or City Slicker Farm sustains life in Oakland, like Urban Relief does. B-Boys sustain life in New York City, just like the sustainable South Bronx does. My work as an artist is to make work and build systems that indicate what Black joy might look like at scale. Let me show you a little bit of what it looks like. This comes from Life is Living in Oakland.
I want you to look around and I want you to think about intentional community design. Like, how is it that we all happen to be here together at this one moment in time? Who are the advocates? Who are the voices? What are the faces? We who are gathered in reflection of what is possible. Petition This is why we're here. Packed for the future. Let's go. Let's not stumble into tomorrow. Let's go confidently, intentionally into the future. Life, live it. Let's do this.
Word. Who's doing the captioning? You're a baller. You're a baller. I'm gonna put you to the test in a minute though. Okay? Wow. So Life is Living is Life is Living is community-based response to the question of life. It happens annually in the city of Oakland and informally in different cities from Atlanta to Los Angeles, based on the desire of local partners to think creatively about the intersection of arts practice and sustainable survival practices. I began today by asking you to shout out your teachers, and I'd love it if maybe we could also shout out our students. Who's in your line? Shout them out. Yes. Yeah. I know some of us are like, I don't know if I'm a, I don't know if I'm gonna claim all these people. So, my line is one of elevated language, and I just want to maybe share a piece with you. So, I want to introduce you to me. I'm the almighty nigga mentality. I live in a box at the center of the sun. I'm the colonized mind personified live right here at Carnegie Hall in front of everyone. My ancestral run begins with hate. Hate was my great-great-grand. Had several kids dispersed across several lands, and man co-opted and then made manifest parties like division and greed, murder, excess. Greed had incestuous sex with his cousin Neglect in the West. Genetic defect produced this unfortunate deformity. They had a baby named Ignorance. And Ignorance just could not see. Ignorance fell in love with Hate, who by now had turned in on herself, burned within self. It would make your heart melt. There was this heartfelt connection between self-hate and Ignorance came thence my racist parent. My parent, racist. And traces of the seed originated with greed, so race's primary need was to feed a hunger for eternity and universal props. He dropped the T, substituted with an M. He said, forget racism, forget the racist individual, I'm gonna be racism. An institution. And God complex delusions started cooling with my dad, gave him that, told him you all that, and racism got fat off his own PR, said I am the star of this show, and there he go. He embedded himself in the cornerstone of all the new nations. He made himself chair of the House of Appropriations. Nothing was safe until chaste capitalism stepped in the frame. Hey baby, what's your name? Racism spitting that game, because capitalism is a looker. She flipped it on him. He was a two-bit hooker. He took her and shook her. That's why he was violent. She looked him dead in the eye. He fell steady, silent, compliant. She said, look, racism, we're gonna do it like this. Racism, first of all, we're gonna pretend that you don't exist. Then we're gonna tell the whole world to serve me, a much more attractive interest, but will shape everything so we both benefit. She leaned over slowly, kissed him on the lips. Pop nodded his head. It's been that way ever since. Shortly thereafter, they had my brother, Slavery. A few years later, along came me. Now, I'm glad I don't possess all these family traits. I don't hate anyone except my carrier and his crew, but I do love my master, and I worship his truth. And I must admit, I am whipped weak by greed's fleet genes running through my core. I got mounds of self-hate behind the closet door of skeletons and secrets wearing sins and Friedrich Nietzsche's brilliant theories, but I grow weary, drawing defenses against self-constructed attacks. I try to relax, contemplate my link to ignorance, which makes no sense because I got knowledge. I know Timbo and I know Polo. I know Nike and Moschino. I know Nautica, Sean John, Versace, Vuitton, Dolce & Gabbana, Prada, Canal, Levi's, BK, CK, DKNY, Anne Klein, Fubu, Guess, Rolex, Lex, Vivas, Benz. I know them all. I know the ends don't justify the means. I know God. I know God is rectangular and grayish green. I Novus Ordo Seclorum don't include me. I know how to serve my dignity up on a platter. I know how to serve my master. I know how to run in place faster and smoother than panthers and cougars and coons. Oh my, I know, sir, but I don't know why other minds inclined to design systems which confine the carry and bind into themselves the political ties for the sole purpose of promoting their own economic advantage. I don't understand it. We share the same planet, but these walls are like granite. I cannot escape. All this light got me twisted, consumed with a fable, written in invisible ink that my master swears is my fate. My master eliminates all fiction. I'll deviate never. I'd rather beat my head against the walls of a cell, trying to remember my name forever. 3 rows of 222 bird's-eye-sized holes, calling gently, subtly, suggesting in the dark might be a key which gives my name back to me, but I don't want to be in the dark. I don't want to be in the dark. I don't want to be dark. I don't want to be dark. I don't want to be. I mean, really, I don't even want to be. It's the almighty nigga mentality. Thanks. So, that poem is like 20 years old. It's, big up, we tried. I warned you. That probably was the first piece that I wrote, which itself was constructed as pedagogy. Both what it is and how it's spit. The embedded and embodied curriculum for the work that I make. So when I ask you who's in your line, who are your students, how are you engaged in moving folks from the back to the front, I say that with great intention. You'll look, I guess the person in the back row, this is a still from the ensemble version of a piece called Word Becomes Flesh. The piece is about, well, it's a series of letters from father to unborn son. These are some of the young men who took the piece from a solo work, which it was when I performed it, to an ensemble work. And one of the dudes in the back, this picture was taken 16 months later. And I guess I just want to say that, one, you know you're doing it right if your humble brag isn't what you do, but who's in your dojo? Like, who's in your dojo? But also because naming and claiming our students is actually part of this choreography towards social justice that I described earlier. It's just a consciousness of what it is that we're doing in these laboratories and how these young people will ultimately affect the planet. I have the great honor of working with Mariah Landers and Michelle Lee and a number of artists on the Rise Up curriculum, which is a way for contemporary educators to rethink Hamilton in terms of the broad humanities, to think about our journeys here, about epistolary writing, to think about the journey from inquiry to impact in a systematic way, clearly in conversation with one of the most influential works of our time. So check that out. And I guess I share that with you to say that another way that I'm trying to answer this question is through curriculum design. So maybe the last piece that I want to share with you comes from this guy. His name is Teddy Cruz.
Being neutral in the context of today's urgent socioeconomic and political conditions is to be complicit with the institutions that have perpetuated what is ethically and morally wrong. Today, more than ever, we as artists and cultural producers need to take a political position against what is ethically and morally wrong. That inequality is wrong, that xenophobia is wrong, and that building border walls is wrong. Our incapacity to think socially and politically, in fact, is part of a period of anti-social, anti-public agendas that have not only decimated our collective social, economic, and environmental assets, but in fact have perpetuated unprecedented urban asymmetry between enclaves of mega wealth and sectors of marginalization, and unprecedented socioeconomic inequality. So the fundamental question today that I want to offer is, where is our public imagination? We as artists must demand a new public agenda, because a society that is anti-taxes, anti-government, anti-public infrastructure, anti-immigration only commits civic suicide. In fact, not only artists, but cultural institutions must take a political position.
I'm gonna stop right there. Not only artists, but institutions. Not only artists, but institutions must take a political position. I have the very great honor of working at a contemporary arts center in San Francisco called Yerba Buena Center for the Arts. My title there is Chief of Program and Pedagogy. I made that title up myself. You could tell I made that shit up, cause like, but you know, like we're close to Silicon Valley, motherfuckers just make shit up all the time, so. So this art center ultimately works in service of free thinkers and earnest leaders. About 15 months ago, this guy, Teddy Cruz, this architect, addressed us at what we call the YBCA 100 Summit. At the time of this talk, we were 5 days away from the 2016 presidential election. And I remember that the air outside tasted like stale hope. Inside the forum, though, I found myself electrified and sharply determined in response to one of Teddy's questions to us that day. He centered us in the thought that public space is where beliefs are physicalized and constructed. He observed with us that we're stuck in a civic pattern where top-down resources rarely interface with bottom-up agency. And then he pleadingly asked us, where is our public imagination? Where is our public imagination? More than anything else, I think this is the question that we are burdened with. A couple of days ago, 2 days ago, marked the anniversary of John F. Kennedy's moonshot speech. On September 12th, 1962, in front of a crowd in Dallas, ironically. Kennedy urged us into a cohesive, coherent vision, just on the other side of what was possible. He said, "There is no strife, no prejudice, no national conflict in outer space as yet. Its hazards are hostile to us all. Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind, and its opportunity for peaceful cooperation may never come again. But why, some say, why the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago fly the Atlantic?" Kennedy said, "We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things not because they're easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, the one we intend to win, and the others too." This country, man, used to actually be led by leaders. I wonder how might we envision Kennedy's moonshot speech if his aim was not space, but education, or public health, or equity. Like if Kennedy's moon was actually immigration, or abolition, what role would art play in getting us there? What would be the role of art towards transporting us to the near impossible? My kid is 16. He's driving now. He's learning to signal before he switches. That was like a code switch joke. Just as he learns the frightening numbers that mark him unwittingly as a target. We talk about license and permission and rights. Freedom, however, is different than mobility. And driving is a gift and a convenience, but freedom is a destination of birthright. And in my family, the vessel most likely to get us there is artistic practice. Through art, we ask the lawmakers who steward our social context to reach a little higher than the plane of a prison keyhole when considering justice for all. We ask, where is our public imagination? Who would we be if we spent even 1% of the Pentagon's budget on a department of inspiration? I share this with you because it is personal. The work that we do can never not be personal. I am at an intersection where parenthood, structural racism, juvenile justice, and creative practice all meet. Our challenge in this room is to normalize pathways for young people to understand that the world is not a utopia, but theirs is the right to justice and joy. We can't undo history, but we can co-create conditions for young people to inscribe creative freedom and movement in their expectations for the future. I don't know if we can choreograph social justice, but I'm honored to be able to join you in the attempt. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks. Thanks, guys.